Hi, John.
Hello, how are you?
Okay, how are you doing?
Trying to stay warm.
Oh, yes, indeed. Did you have a good time visiting your granddaughter?
We did. We just got back a little while ago. All worked
Oh,
out,
how
all worked out
nice.
very well.
Oh, I see our beautiful florist here.
Yes, we had a good time with her. We went
Good.
bowling today.
I like the way your shirt coordinates with your top.
Unintentional again.
Not a coincidence, I'm sure.
We got to play a board game all together last night, and then we did stuff in the morning, and we took her bowling, and then we came home.
Okay. What board game did you play?
Life.
Oh, that's a good one. Yes.
Yes.
You get to have
Yes.
3 sets of twins and all kinds of
Yeah,
good things
I
there.
think she got all those, and she knew all about like not what was it? Not investing right before retirement and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, it was a more sophisticated
Version. Yeah.
approach than I would have expected for someone that age. And she won.
Yeah, she did.
And it's the big decision. Do you go to college or not?
Yeah, right off the bat. Yep. Funny.
Well, it's a better game than Candyland or one of those.
Yeah. I think she's probably past that now.
Oh, I hope so.
I'm past it.
Well, I'm glad you had a very good visit.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi, Tammy.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Hello.
How did everybody do in the storm?
Just that it's
We're
cold.
just shoveled out.
Yeah, I talked to some people in the ECS had 6 inches. We had a lot of ice. Yeah, I know,
Oh.
right?
Wow.
Up by Baskin Ridge. We had a lot of ice.
You did.
Mm,
Hi, Nancy.
Hi
and
there. Who am I saying hi to? I only see a
Linda.
hand.
It's Linda
Hi,
Rizzo.
Linda. How's everybody tonight?
Doing very well.
Oh,
Good.
good. So we're recording.
We are. We now have a some people following us on YouTube. So
Woohoo!
yeah,
Well, they should be. There should be more.
there should be. There should be. So they're starting from the beginning, so
Oh.
God bless them.
Wow, that's wonderful.
I
Tammy,
know.
that reminds me, I didn't pull YouTube numbers for the report. Do you need those?
Oh no, you know what, Jenna, that's fine. I mean,
Okay.
don't go to extra. I mean, it's lovely, moving forward we can certainly do that, but don't go to the extra work and your report was wonderful.
Okay.
It was very impressive, those numbers.
Would
Yeah,
you
we had
expect
a nice
anything
year.
other than that from her?
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Mhm.
You guys are easily impressed by my efforts, so it's good for my ego.
Well, we'll just
We
keep stoking it. It's okay.
we all need that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was always floored every month by those reports, but like to see it in the year was like incredible. I think that it listed 92.5 thousand views for the year. It's like, wow.
Wow.
Really?
On
Wow.
Facebook. Mhm.
Wow.
Yeah.
And 90,000 of them were from Jenna.
And none for me because I'm still blackballed.
Oh yeah, there you go. Then you're not
can't
contributing
get
to this
on.
at all.
When are we going to get you fixed, darling?
We've tried lots of different ways.
Yeah, somebody's gotta do that. Although it's very hard. And before I start, I will say for some reason I can't get on Instagram anymore, and I don't know
Me
why.
neither. No, me neither.
Me too, Nancy. And it won't let me. So I've been thrown off Instagram, and I don't even do Instagram.
Well, I don't do it, but I need to follow it because of different activities that I participate
Yeah.
in.
Yeah, I know. I've been trying to watch I try, but for months I can't get, it won't let me on. So I don't
Well,
know.
I'll try and look at it on Sunday for you.
Thanks, Gina. That would be awesome. I don't know why, because like I try to look at the chart and I don't do anything else on Instagram. I don't like, we don't have an ECS account. ECS just got a YouTube account. So this is, but I only looked at the churches and I've been thrown off and back on. I don't even know why.
That's really bad.
It is bad. I guess we could get started. I don't know if we have Agnes tonight or we don't, but we could get started and then we'll, I hope she's not shuffling.
Lydia and John, I love how I see your shoulders.
What?
You don't see us?
Okay, that's
Oh, is that
okay,
all you see? You don't see our
that's all we
faces?
see.
Really?
No,
We can see your faces.
no, all I see is your shoulders.
That's
Oh,
weird.
that is weird because we can see your faces.
Yeah, that's because I see
Really?
the image that you're supposed to see. I don't know what to,
Mhm.
I don't know what to tell you, Nancy. We're like, you're properly framed.
Well, okay,
They
I'll
are.
just wave to you.
Mm-hmm. So we'll open with prayer and then we'll just get started and see if I hope Agnes is not shoveling and the Lord be with you.
And also,
Also
Yeah.
And
with
also
you.
with you.
Let us pray. Gracious and loving God, we thank you for bringing us to this night and for the opportunity to share your word and your love. We pray, O Lord, that you be present with us in these really difficult texts to help us to discern what you need us to know and to so that we can bring the kingdom of God beyond our beyond ourselves and to know that that you are bigger than all of us and have given us this mission to spread your love into this world. And we ask that you help us through these texts, that we can get through the really difficult things and follow your lead. All this we ask in the name of your Son, our Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen. So
Amen.
welcome everyone who are with us tonight and who will be with us who will be with us on tape this week. And so we finished up chapter 17 last week. And any questions or comments before we move on to 18?
No, I'm good.
Any questions or comments about 18? I'm assuming that you've read ahead and you know what's going on in 18. Are there any questions or comments about 18?
Not yet.
No, yeah, right. Because, and I know what you're thinking is because it's leading into 19. Which is which is difficult, right? And
Right.
the reason that 19 is so difficult, and I hope that when we get to 19, right, if we finish up 18 tonight and start to move into 19, which is of course Sodom and Gomorrah, maybe we'll get a little of that, maybe we won't, but I'm hoping that I can frame that with a little bit of a different perspective, because that chapter, right, has been weaponized to to the detriment of a lot of people, right? And it has been suggested that it says things that it doesn't say, right? We've used that a lot to condemn homosexuality. We use that a lot to justify God's wrath, right? After last week, we talked about El Shaddai and this nurturing God, right? And then all of a sudden, it seems like we have this wrathful God who's ready to destroy, right? Who is just sitting in heaven, right? That picture of God sitting in heaven, like this old man, with this book, keeping track of us. It's really, it's done a lot of damage, right? That interpretation has done a lot of damage. I'm hoping that we can move through 18 and 19 with a much better understanding of what that is trying to tell us. And, just have a much different view of that text. Questions, comments before we start?
I would just like to mention
Mhm.
that Genesis 18, the beginning, the story of Abraham and Sarah, which is the first window,
Mhm.
stained glass window,
Mm.
is also mentioned in this month's book club book,
Oh,
The Little Liar by Mitch Albom.
okay.
And it comes in as far as telling the truth and changing the truth. So I don't want to give it away because Nancy hasn't read the book yet, but
Oh,
I
that's
don't
okay.
think
Don't
you
worry
have.
about it, Linda.
Mhm.
But it's interesting that this would pop up at this timely fashion with the book club.
Yeah. And so you've read this book, Linda, and
Yes, I finished it. Yes.
So does it refer to, like, without giving it away, does it refer to like this weaponization of the Bible, right? We see a lot of that today. It's not just with Sodom and Gomorrah, but we see a lot of weaponization of the Bible today.
No, it doesn't. It takes it more from the focus of truth
Okay.
and lying, telling fibs.
Okay.
Actually, out and out lies. But the
Okay.
fact that Sarah's comment inside the tent
Yeah.
was that she was old and
Yeah.
how could she bear a child?
Mm-hmm.
But when the angel repeated her words to
Mm-hmm.
Abraham, he left out, or the angel left out
Mm-hmm.
the part about her being old. Uh,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and it
Mm-hmm.
was interesting because it came up in this book discussion
Mm-hmm.
or in the book itself.
Mm-hmm.
What is a lie, and
Mm-hmm.
how you can change a fact into making it
Mm-hmm.
what you want it to be. So
Okay.
I thought it was interesting though
It
when
is
that
interesting.
story popped up, and of course that's one of my favorite windows in the
Yeah.
church.
Yeah. It is interesting, Linda. Yeah. Wow. Um, so it's funny that it would appear in a modern book like that today, right?
Yeah.
Um, So yeah, and the Hebrew word that Sarah uses when she describes herself as old, right? Because she uses it as a self-description. Nobody says this to her, right? It is a self-description. And the Hebrew word that she uses for old isn't usually used in relation to a person, right? It's usually it means like weathered and leathery, right? It's usually references things, not a person. So it's kind of an unusual word for her to use, but it is self-descriptive, right? The angels don't say you're old to her. You're too old for this, right? They she overhears this and she that is her assumption, right? And the excuse me for one second. I have an appointment with somebody tomorrow. I'm not sure if this is them. Um no, it's just Agnes who can't be with us today. So yeah, so that is an interesting perspective, right? That she recognizes this. And the reason that she recognizes this, not to get ahead of this text before we start in the beginning, is that it's really to make a distinction between um how do I want to say this, right? Because she laughs when she
Mhm.
hears this, and it's not a joyful laugh, right? There are, I think, like six references to laughter when it comes to Isaac's birth, right? Abraham first laughs when God tells him this. um Sarah laughs, right? Isaac's name means he laughs. um but Abraham's laugh, the few times that Abraham laughs at this, it's sort of like a joyful laugh, right? But Sarah's isn't. The way that it's used, there's something in Hebrew. There's ways that Hebrew words are expressed, and the peel is one of the kind of adds meaning to words. I'm trying to find the English words to put this, but if whether it's like a call or a peel, it adds to the context of the word. And the way that the peel is used for laughter in Hebrew here, it means like it's a mocking laugh. It's like a derision, right? She doesn't believe it. And it's not like a, oh, haha, that's very funny, or it's not a like an accepting joyful laugh. It's one of disbelief, of mocking, right? And
Like a,
it's
yeah, right.
yeah, like a yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, uh-huh. Yeah. I mean, she won't do that. Like it will be different when Isaac is actually born. We'll see that she laughs again, right? If you've read ahead, you'll see the next time that Sarah laughs is after the birth of Isaac. And it's a much different use of the word laugh. That is a joyful laugh, but this one is not. And the purpose
Yeah.
for that, right, is to show the tension between God's plans and human belief in things that seem impossible. And when we think about it, right, this is a question that as people of faith we all have to answer during our journeys, right? Is that if we accept for our faith in ourselves the world as it appears to us as humans, right? This very closed system where things that seem impossible can happen and won't happen? Or are we open to the impossibilities that God is capable of? Right? And this laughter of Sarah's is really to bring that question into focus to the readers. Like, what side is your faith on? Remember, the Bible is always putting us in a position to answer those questions for our own faith, right? This is why we have all these examples of very fallible people, because we're fallible, right? And we will all, and listen, we won't probably have babies when we're in our 90s, but we will all face, and sometimes often, those challenges of what we're going to believe. If we're going to believe that God is really in charge of this bigger destiny and plan, or if, it's just laughable to think that. Like, do we choose life or do we choose death, right? The barrenness and death that seems to be, pervasive in the world. Where is our faith in this? And that's why it appears, right? It appears there to create tension between our own human will and that of God's. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
What's the significance, if there is significance, to the
Mhm.
little argument where she says, "Well, I didn't laugh,"
Mm.
and then he said, "Oh, yes, you did laugh."
Mhm.
And by the way, it's not clear to me, is the he who's saying that God or is it Abraham? But she's arguing with somebody.
She is, right? Yeah. So when we see this, John, right? Let me find this. So you said, and Abraham hastened his tent, make ready quick.
It's
They
The
the
say,
very,
"Where's your
very
wife?"
last paragraph.
It's 18,
18.
it's 15. Well, it's
Yeah,
18:15.
15.
Is anything too okay? Yeah, okay. So Sarah laughed to herself. That's 12, saying, "After I've grown old." So she's saying it. So they said, "Where is your wife?" They're in the tent. So it's the angels, right? The angels and God are saying this, and she overhears them. And Sarah was listening at the entrance. Um, she's saying it to herself, right? It's this out loud questioning
Right,
of God.
but
Um, And then God says to Abram, "Why did Sarah laugh?" Right, he calls
right.
her out. Uh-huh.
And then it says, "But Sarah denied, saying, I did not
Mm-hmm.
laugh, for she was
Yeah.
afraid." He said, "Oh,
Mm.
yes, you did laugh."
John's saying, Who's he?"
Is he their
Oh, at that time. Oh,
God
yeah, that's a good question,
or is that
right?
Abraham?
Sarah, I did not laugh for she was afraid. He said, "Oh, yes, you did laugh." That's a good question, John. I've
Because at
never,
first, when I tell you, I've read it a bunch of times, and every time until like today, I thought
yeah.
she was like confronting God. But
Yes,
now that I see that, that's not really clear.
that's
And
interesting.
and maybe there's
Yeah.
no significance to it at all, but I just wondered, I thought it was curious in the whole piece. There's this tiny little argument. I
Yeah.
didn't laugh. Yes, you did. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not
Yeah.
sure what that's supposed to be exemplifying.
That's interesting, John. In my opinion, I would say that she was saying that it was God that was saying that. And simply for the fact, again, because this piece here is meant to create that tension between God's will and human will and belief.
Well, and okay, that makes sense. And I also
Hmm.
get, because it does say she was afraid. Well, she
Hmm.
could be afraid for
Hmm.
having mocked God or
Hmm.
rejected God. That makes perfect
Hmm.
sense to me.
Hmm.
She's Sarah. He's God. I
Hmm.
get that.
Hmm. I mean, and it also tells us, right, that when they say in 9, right, when the angels say to Abram, like, "Where is your wife Sarah?" Like this is huge, right? Nobody ever says Sarah's name, right? It's clearly supernatural because nobody says here's Sarah name. They just know Sarah's name. They've never met her. But yeah, that is to create that tension between God's will and that seems impossible and human will that says that is impossible. And I think, there's much to be said about the fact that, like, we also at times doubt God, right? And doubt God's capability in our lives and would probably very much deny that too, right? If we were confronted with God by God.
Yeah.
Mhm,
Absolutely. Who wants to insult God?
mhm. Mhm. That's funny, John. I've never seen that before. I've never even seen that in commentaries. It was really well done.
Well, I didn't mean to stump the priest.
No,
I was
no,
just
that's
curious.
okay. It's always good to stump me because
Bonus
now I'm
points,
gonna go.
John.
Now I'm gonna go research that. No, that's. I mean, and that's just my opinion, and I could be totally wrong. Um, yeah. I mean, because I think that this is kind of the clue in 14, right? Is anything too wonderful for the Lord? And that is a different way that we would understand wonderful, right? It would this means more of impossible, like wonderful in the impossible way. And it says at the set time I will return to you in due season, right? 9 months later, and Sarah shall have a son. Yeah, I think that was God saying that to her. But now I'm going to research it. And honestly, we'll probably find commentators that will have several different answers to that.
Mhm.
I mean, we'll see that when we get to the chapter about Jacob wrestling at the Jabbok, right? There's all kinds of theories like who does he wrestle? Like, is it his conscience? Is that like a metaphor for that? Is it Esau? Is it an angel? Is it God? Who is it, right? And for every question there is, right, there's a commentary who will tell you there was a commentator who will say something different. And I bet that's the case here, but I'm definitely going to search that out. Interesting. Well done. Um, so that said, we can start to look at the beginning of this, right? There's a few really important things in this. Right. So the Lord appeared to Abram by the oaks of Mamre, right? The oaks are really important in this. Trees are important, right? When you live in an arid place, trees are really, really important because trees don't normally grow in arid places, right? And so sometimes when we see trees in the Bible, it represents holy places. And we know that there's other biblical characters that are associated with Mamre. And so it is a very holy site in Judaism. But it also, the elevation extends 3,000 feet above sea level, right? So it's really, really high. So we know that when they're going to look down to the valley, that they're going to have a really good sight of when God and Abram are talking, right? High elevation. Um, and so Abram is sitting by the entrance of his tent in the heat of the day. Is not unusual, right? In Palestine, right, there would be that would be what would happen in a typical day because it's extremely hot. And so they would have these tents that were made of goat hair, very coarse and prickly, the same thing that you would sometimes use for sackcloth. And the reason that they used these goat hair tents was they were very absorbent. So the water hit them once and they became waterproof. And so these tents would be fairly large, probably partitioned in about 3 sections, one for the men, one for the women, and one for the livestock. They would just have like these veils between them. And if a man outside of that tribe had entered the women's place, right, they would be subject to be stoning. You'd be killed if you were a man outside of the tribe that entered the women's domain. And so a lot of times, Bedouin people of Abram's day would sit at the tent during these hot hours with the flap open. And part of their job was to look to see if they saw strangers in the area because hospitality is supreme. And so if you saw a stranger, it was kind of your duty to offer hospitality to those people, right? And hospitality in the form of food, of, temporary lodging, um, washing, right? Water to wash. And so it's probably not hard to believe that Abram was sitting at the tent, right? Looking for this to happen, looking for see if anybody's passing by. And he spots somebody, right? He looks up and he sees 3 men standing near him. And this next sentence is really important. We saw them. He ran from the tent entrance to meet them, right? And the reason that that's really important is because he must have recognized very early on that there was something particular about this group of men, right? Because a man of his age is about 90 at this point. A man of his age would not have run, right? Because to run, you kind of have to pull up your robes to run, right? We see this in the prodigal son, and like that was really like men didn't show their legs in first century Palestine, Jewish men. And so the fact that Abram runs to greet them shows, like, tips us off early in this reading, right? That there's going to be something that's significant about these visitors. These aren't usual visitors. When he saw them, he ran, right? And what does he do after he runs to get them, right? He's in a rush to see them. He runs, and then he does something else.
He bows.
He bows, right? He bows to them. And this is again going to reinforce their uniqueness, right? And the reason for that is that this isn't like just an act of humility, or it's an act or reverence, right? It's actually like an act of worship. And that's because in this culture, equals, people who are equal, right, considered equal, would have kissed each other on the lips. People who were semi-equal would have kissed on the cheeks. But people who were not equal, right, one was considered clearly to be a superior. The inferior would have gone to their face, right, dropped down and bowed to them as they threw kisses on the way down, right? That was the mark of a superior to somebody who was considered mark of an inferior, somebody who was socially inferior to somebody. Their status was inferior. That's how you would treat somebody who had superior status. And it's interesting that Abraham does this to these visitors, but didn't do that with Melchizedek. He doesn't offer Melchizedek that kind of reverence and worship. And so that's really significant. It's significant because it tells us there's something very, very different about these people, the reverence that Abram shows to them. And remember that he himself is quite a politically and financially powerful person, right? We've seen him defeat armies a few chapters back, like very powerful armies and tribal leaders. We know that he's wealthy from all of these goods that have been given to him from Pharaoh, from we haven't gotten there yet. Have we got, we've passed that about,
Yeah.
no, we have not yet. Well, he's wealthy. Let's just say that. He's very wealthy. And he would not have been in the position to say, this is an inferior, but he assumes that position. He pays homage to this group of people, right? And he says something to them as he bows down to the ground, right? He says, my Lord, my Lord. What does that say to you guys?
I just took that because it's the lowercase l. I took that to be, sort of the whatever medieval or older.
Like master?
Yeah, that he was
like master.
he was in a subordinate servant relationship to a superior.
Yes. Yes, it is not capitalized, right? But he does recognize, right? It is a word that is still used for God, and it is a recognition. And the thing that first tips us off with this is that your servant, right? He says, my Lord, your servant. He's putting himself in a subservient role. But Lord is sometimes still used for God, right? And so he's recognizing something about this one person, right? Not all three of them. He bows to this one. He calls this one my Lord. It's not saying it to there's three people here. he specifically points one out. Right. And he says, if I find favor with you, right? And the interpretation for that would be grace. Right. It's an acceptance, it's a grace that's unmerited. And he says, do not pass by your servant, right? Singular. Let a little water be brought to wash your feet. And then he offers this lavish banquet, right? A little bread. And then he orders, he goes to Sarah and he says, make ready this choice with the choice flour. It's actually the amount that he actually orders in this is like 36 pounds of flour. That would be about 144 eggs. It's huge, right? It is showing an overabundance of reverence that Abram's giving to this person, right? He runs to the herd and he takes a calf. Like you would never have eaten meat in the middle of the day at this time, right? You would have eaten like a lentil meal. You would not have taken a calf and made this huge, luxurious meal. And so all of this says to us that, he's seeing something that's unique in this person. Questions? Right. He understands that this is not accidental. And the actual word that Abram is using is singular, right? He is addressing one. He's not addressing the other two. The other two are kind of just part of the cohort here, right? He's seeing something in this one person that he's recognizing as godly, as a presence of God. Right. Narrator wants us to know that this is big. And so typically what would have happened in that day, right, would be that the meal would have been served in the tent. There were rugs, there were mats on the floor. There would be a communal pot that was put in the middle of the tent. Everybody was given some bread to dip out that meal as they sat around the circle. And typically the host would not have joined in that circle because it was the host's job to be a servant. And so the host would stand up to the side, and that's probably what Abram was doing to make sure that the guests had everything they needed. That vision also gives us a little insight into the Last Supper of Christ also, right? Where it says that Jesus says, the person I'm going to dip the bread in at the same time as the meal is the one who will betray me, right? That was the custom. You would all eat out of a communal pot. But Abram was probably a little bit off to the side and to seeing what else, if he could help in any other way to serve them, right? He's there as a servant, not as a participant in this meal. Questions, right? He stood by them under the tree while they ate, right? Curds and milk, another luxury. And he's kind of just off in the distance watching this to see what else he can do. And then we get to Sarah, right? This is the birth announcement. This is really the point of this whole narrative. All this other stuff is just background, but the point of this narrative is a birth announcement, right? This is going to be Sarah's birth announcement that she is actually going to have a son, right? And it specifically points out Sarah, right? No more thoughts about Ishmael and Hagar. They are specifically pinpointing Sarah as the mother to the seed. Questions? Right. And again, it's building to this tension between God's plan and human doubt, human lack of faith in God's plan. Right. And again, see in 11, right, how this tension is emphasized. Now, Abraham and Sarah were old, right? The narrator reminds us that they are too old for this. Right. That is the crux of this text, the impossibilities that seem fruitless to us as humans are overcome by God. And so, yes, we're going to stress now. Sarah was old. It ceased to be with Sarah after the manner of women, right? She is postmenopause. And so she laughs, right? After I have grown old and my husband is old, shall I have the pleasure? Questions, comments about this? Everything this narrative was leading up to is the affirmation from this God, right? Who seems to be incarnate, who seems to be a man right now, right? And in human form is affirming the fact that this is going to happen. She still doesn't believe it. She mocks it. But God has confirmed this is it. This is where the seed is going to come from. Right. And then asks, is anything too wonderful, impossible for God? Right. The open question for us all. The question we all need to answer in our own lives. What's going to be our frame of reference, right? Are we going to believe in the things that we see, or are we going to believe in the promises of God? And here I want to say this, right? This text isn't to infer that everything that seems impossible is made possible by God, right? Only those things that are within God's plan and purpose, right? We know this from the crucifixion, that God does not stop the crucifixion because that was part of the plan and the purpose. But once something is part of God's plan and purpose, it doesn't matter how much we get in the way. It doesn't matter how much circumstances get in the way, right? If it is part of God's purpose and plan, it will come to fruition. That's what the narrator wants us to know in this text.
I think Sarah should be given a break.
You think she should be given a break?
I do. I think that I know this is not meant to be disrespectful, but
Uh-huh.
to first be told that, I don't think it's so crazy for her to say, you know, in modern words, like, are you kidding? This, you know,
Yeah.
I'm past this. I mean,
Mhm.
and then maybe, you know, understanding later that, yeah, this is going to happen. But I don't think her initial response to hearing that this is going to happen
Mhm.
should be considered outrageous.
It's not, right? It's not. It's
not.
not, right?
I mean,
It's
it comes,
not, Leah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's not. And bear in mind, by the time that this, chronologically takes place in the Abrahamic narrative, right? It's like 15 years after the fact that God has said, this is going to happen. There's a long time that passes
Mhm.
between this and that. So yeah, it is very logical that Sarah would doubt this. And again, the narrator puts it in this context where it's like, okay, she's mocking God by laughing, but really doesn't say, oh, that awful Sarah,
Right.
puts it out there for us to decide if we think that Sarah is realistic or unfaithful. Because faith isn't always realistic.
I think given everything
Mm-hmm.
that Abraham is saying to her,
Mm-hmm.
it had to have felt like a terrible joke.
Yeah.
You know, I love this sentence.
Mm-hmm.
But Sarah denied it, saying, "Oh no, I'm sorry. Surely I shall bear a child since I am old. Is anything too hard for the Lord? At the
Mm-hmm.
appointed time I will return to you, and at the time of life she shall have a son." But
Mm-hmm.
it's just no. This is the sentence. After I have grown old, shall I
Mm-hmm.
have pleasure, my Lord being old also?
Mm-hmm.
It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's not just me. It's him.
It's him
You know.
too. It's him
Come
too.
on.
Yeah. I mean, it does sound crazy, right? And bear in mind, nowhere in this text does it say that Sarah recognizes that there's something special about these visitors, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Abraham clearly understands. I mean, his acts clearly, reveal the fact that he sees something very, very special in these people, right? Recognizes God
Yeah.
in one of them,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But it never says that Sarah does. I mean, to her, they could be just like the three visitors, right?
Yeah.
Some people that she's cooking for. So no, I don't think that it's unrealistic of Sarah to act in the manner that she does.
And if she left, she was entitled to it.
Sometimes that's the way it feels, right?
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
how it can feel. And there's been a lot made in, especially in the Anglican Church and the Church of England, that, and I do want to correct this, right? That a couple of things. So the Anglican Church, the Church of England, has said that, oh yes, you know what? These were actually like a foreshadow of the Trinity. Right. There's three of them, one who's clearly the Godhead that Abram's recognizing. And that's why on Trinity Sunday, the lectionary serves up this reading, right? Because it's been equated as the foreshadow of the Trinity.
Hmm.
I don't know if I want to go that far, right? I always look as a student of the prophets, it is undeniable that the prophecy points to the Messiah, right? It's undeniable to me. I mean, that's the purpose of prophecy. I think that we tread we shouldn't go to reading Christianity into all of these texts, right? That was not the point when it was written. Right? The people who set the redactors, the original tellers of this tale, right? That wasn't their purpose. They didn't think this was prophecy. It was theology to them. And so they took the stories of their people and they made it into theology, right? Theology meaning that these stories would reveal something about God. That all of these stories tell us something about God. And that's always what we get wrong when we read the Hebrew Bible. We always want to read it as either literal or some kind of nonfiction, right? That everything has to be what it says here. We don't realize that this is a people that are writing a theology, right? It's not science. It's not history. It's not any of those genres that we get very disappointed when we read and say, well, that must mean that the Bible is wrong because it doesn't fit this. It's not meant to be, it's meant to be theology. This is meant to tell us something about God. It's not meant for us to say, oh, wait, is that the Trinity in there? Because honestly, when this was written, that was not a thought. This is not prophecy, right? There's different genres in the Hebrew Bible, right? Poetry. There is some history. There's prose, there's narratives. There's prophecy, there's wisdom. This is not any of that. It's a theology that's meant to tell us something about God. What this tells us about God. Well, you tell me, what does this tell you about God?
Well, I mean, it reinforces his omnipotence.
Mm-hmm.
If he can cause to exist things which are essentially beyond
Mm-hmm.
man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Exactly, right. Tells us something about God's power. Tells us something about the unstoppable nature of God's plan. Tells us something about the unstoppability of God. It's a theology. It's meant to tell us something within a story. The story holds our interest. The story doesn't only hold our interest. That's unfair. The story also speaks to our own lives because although these stories are really, really, really old and ancient, right? There are still things in these stories that we can identify with. We might not be 90 and have kids, and find ourselves in the family situation, right? But there are going to be times when we feel God's call to do something that seems seemingly impossible. And it will go over and over in our minds, very much like it had to of Sarah. There are many times in our faith journeys where God will call us to places, like it says about Peter, we'd rather not go. And the reasons is because, it's scary and we doubt it. And we do tend to put our trust more in ourselves, right? We're humans. We like control. We don't like giving control over, and we especially don't like handing our control over to something that we don't see. Faith is hard. Faith is hard. And the Bible is very honest in that. The Bible doesn't present us with stories that says faith is easy. Bible never says here, well, stupid Sarah, why didn't you believe? God said it, right? Right? It shows us just very humans just acting very human and honest. And we can see ourselves in all of these circumstances. Remember, especially the Hebrew Bible is always giving us, the remnant that has been chosen to God, right? That are going to be faithful to God's will and are going to pursue God's plan. And then there's always these people who don't, right? We're disobedient to God. And it gives us that choice of how we're going to act in our own faith. I forget how we got there. But does that make sense? Does that clarify some things?
Little, yeah.
Yeah. Theology. Remember theology. And every time you start to think, well, think theology, right? What does this tell me about God? It's always the first question you want to ask, especially in texts like this. What does this tell me about God first? What does it tell me about me, right? And what does it tell me about my relationship with God? They're the three questions you want to ask. But first, what does it tell me about God? Because that was the purpose of these writings. So then if we look, then things start to get a little bit, shaken up, right? So the purpose of the beginning of 18 is this birth narrative and telling and showing us, the power of God to do the impossible, giving us those hard questions of where is our faith in the impossible. But then it moves on to 16, right? This judgment pronounced on Sodom. So it says, then the men set out from there and they looked towards Sodom. And remember the 3,000 feet, above sea level, they're looking down, right? They see Sodom. They're up here and they're looking down on Sodom. And Abraham goes with them, right, as they start to journey on, which would have also been very customary in those days. Like after you would have entertained strangers and offered that hospitality, you would accompany them a little bit on their way, right? You don't just let them go on your own. You would walk them out a little bit, right? And then the Lord, and here it is in capitals, right? Adonai. Lord is used for Adonai because the Jews believed that God's name was too sacred to say. Jews would never say Yahweh. In Greek, this would translate as Kyrios. But whenever you see Lord in capital letters, right, it represents God's name Yahweh, right? And then the Lord said, "Shall I hide from Abraham what I am about to do?" It's an interesting statement. What does that mean to everyone? Like, God's kind of talking out loud here.
As a human, is he capable of understanding and complying?
Okay.
I was curious. It's actually
Mhm.
it's that second clause
Mm-hmm.
where it says, "And all the nations of the earth shall be blessed in him." So Does that mean because Sodom is the opposite of blessed, we're going to get rid of it? So it's not it's not in Abram's. If it's unblessed, so we will remove it from
Okay.
the earth.
Okay. Yeah, because that is kind of the clause from that for this, right? Shall I hide from Abraham what I'm about to do, seeing that Abraham shall become a great and mighty nation? Anybody else? So what this is, right? This is not like God trying to figure it out, right? This is the narrator's way of drawing us in, right, to what God's thoughts are. And what God is doing is saying here, I've chosen Abraham to be this father of all these nations, all of these this is big, right? And so now, I need to trust in him what I'm going to do, right? I got great plans for him, and so he needs to be on the inside of what's about to happen. And it reveals what that means, right? So why is that important, right? It says, shall I hide? Seeing that Abraham, right? So some translations say, for I have chosen him, which is really the Hebrew translation. A better translation is, for I have known him. Remember that word yada, right? That expresses intimacy, like that intimate relationship. That is a better translation of that. And in other words, Abraham has become a trusted friend of God, in whom God has entrusted really big things. And so God decides, Abraham needs to know what's about to happen. I need to confide this to Abraham because I have these plans for him, right? It's very similar to in the Gospel of John, when Jesus says to his disciples right before the crucifixion, that God has given me all these things that I've entrusted to you because you are my friend, right? No longer slave and master, but friends. And God feels that, he needs to reveal this to Abraham. Abraham needs to know this. And there is this level of intimacy between the both of them that he feels that it is okay to confide this in Abram. And right? And notice then what happens in 19. For I have chosen him that he may charge his children and his households after him to keep the way of the Lord by doing righteousness and justice. And this is huge, right? This is huge. This will later become part of the Torah. It was one of the commands in the Torah that it was the father's responsibility to teach his children about the ways of the Lord. And those two ways are righteousness and justice, right? And now he is telling Abraham, the narrator's telling us, right, that God is charging that Abraham will be responsible for the generations to come to teach them about God. And we did talk about this, and I can't remember if it was in the disciples class or if it was the beginning of this. I think it was in the disciples class, right? This is really important in Judaism because for the most part, unless you would memorize a lot of text, but there was still a lot of illiterate people. And to be able to own a Torah in your own home was just financially impossible, right? You would have to actually go to the synagogue and see the scrolls that were just like immense, right? They weren't like pocket Bibles. And so the father, right, which would later become the duty of the priest once there's a priesthood established in the cult, it was the father's duty to teach their children about God. And the two things that were most important to teach your kids was about God's righteousness, right? Was teaching your kids about righteousness, which was obeying the will of God, right? Doing things according to God's will. And then justice, right? That's what just means. Righteousness is conforming to God's will. Justice is the doing of God's will. And so God knows here, right? What God is saying here, what the narrator is telling us is that God knows that this person he has chosen is going to be the person that's going to carry the the teachings of God, right? This is going to be the person that's going to be responsible for teaching generations to come who God is. And so it's really important for this person to know about what's about to happen. Because Abram will be the bearer of God's attributes. He will be the person that's going to be responsible for generations to come, long after Abraham is gone, of teaching new generations who God is and how to live according to God's will, how to be righteous.